I hope to be able to tell all of my employees in front of them that I made a mistake. I was wrong. And it's okay to make mistakes. That's why we're human.
A lot of the individuals listening to this show, they're in technology leadership. They're even in security, many of them. And I constantly get messages, Joel, how do I get to the next level? How do I grow into my career? Is it another security certificate? Is it, spending time with my peers? Like, how do I actually grow and become better inside of my career?
I think the most important thing, and it sounds really basic, is understand first, what is the business that the company you're in does? What is it that they do? Okay? Who are their customers? What are their demands for your either services or widget, whatever you're selling, whatever it is, you're in the business of something. Maybe nonprofits. Maybe let's put nonprofits on the side right now. Let's just talk about companies that are for profit and you first need to understand what that business model is. I would talk to the sales team. I would say to the sales team, now, hey, tell me your, how is security playing a part in your daily sales cycle? In other words, is it a roadblock for you when you're meeting with customers? And trying to understand that and hearing people out first, listening, and then figuring a way of saying, how can I, instead of making security a challenge, a blocker, how do I make it a selling tool for my salespeople? If there's such a possibility, do that, if there are opportunities there. So ultimately what I say, if you look at a business, think of an analogy, we're going to talk about analogies, I think about a vehicle, a car. And the wheels in that car are different groups within a company: finance, marketing, legal, tech, whatever. One of those wheels is security. Now, if that wheel is a square wheel and then the rest of them are round, that driver, the CEO, is going to ultimately pull over and says, I can't take that square wheel. I can't move efficiently. There's a lot of friction. It's not aligned with the rest of the business. And they're going to replace that square wheel with a round wheel. So really, if you want to move up in security in a company and as you go in your career, really genuinely try to understand what business you're in, your company's in, and figure out how to align security to help with that growth.
How long did it take you to figure that out?
I dropped out of college in my 20s, and I decided to go and do tech work, right? I wanted to be in security. I always wanted to do. I always wanted to be in security, cybersecurity, since I was 14, 15 years old. That was what I wanted to do. That's another story for another day. But I was full of bravado in my 20s, and I thought, just being technical, being the best technical guy, being a guy who could break into companies. I mean, legally, of course, or writing the best code. That was what would make my career, right? And I had a rude awakening, and it's called the .com. And the the bubble burst. And 1 minute you think you're going to be wealthy as hell because your company's going to go public, and within 2-3 months before going public, the entire thing just collapses. And why? And if you step back, a lot of those .com companies didn't really have a business model. There was a lot of money out there from a VC perspective, and it was exciting, and we drank the Kool-Aid, we brewed the Kool-Aid, drank the Kool-Aid, got drunk on the Kool-Aid, and we yet didn't have a business plan, business model. And I knew then that I needed to go back to school and understand business better. So I went and got a degree in economics at University of San Francisco. So plugging my old school. While I was still, so I did work in the daytime doing, security, but also going to school at night. to get a degree in economics because I knew I needed to learn the language of business.
That is so cool. And what was your first job after learning the language of business?
Well, I did a lot of, I worked at a financial risk company where you started looking at defaults, the probability of a not an individual but a company defaulting on their loans. So that even helped me out more. That kind of got me even closer to the idea of how business succeed and fail, at least from what we were selling, the instruments to measure that. So it was a company, it was KMV, and we ultimately got acquired by Moody's.
Oh, cool.
So I have worked at five startups. 3 of them completely failed. And I was the last man standing. Security is usually the last man standing in these things. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible to see your friends, your colleagues, your dreams just disappear. My fourth company, one of those startups. So 3 failed. One of them got acquired, which is KMB, got acquired by Moody's. I was able to make a little money and pay my education at USF. So I was I was debt free from my tuition, which was great. And then Snowflake came, and that really changed everything. So I've had 3 failures and 2 success stories.
Let's talk about when you were 14 or 15 doing those very legal activities. You have any good stories that you're allowed to share publicly about your introduction to technology?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't do anything. I mean, not now when you're 14. I think not when you're 14, 15. I think what it was more in those days, you were just, I'm going to date myself, but, I'm talking the 80s, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there was a movie called War Games.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
Oh, yeah, many times.
Yeah, me too. And I just fell in love with the whole idea of it was a game. It was a game of trying to break in. It's just like a puzzle. So it was more an intrinsic reward to try to find holes in things and to I don't want to say hack. Hack it's not the right term, but you figure ways around a system because these systems are built by humans, and invariably they're going to have errors, misconfigurations, things that you can potentially exploit to then get in. And getting in wasn't, I'm going to steal data, I'm going to go steal something. It was more understanding how to, you got satisfaction of breaking the systems, but it wasn't like systems were so difficult then. I mean, a lot of stuff wasn't really connected back then to begin with. But once you started getting more of the network-based stuff, that's where things got a little bit more interesting. And so there was always that passion for me. And there was a guy. His name's Patrick Heim. He's still my friend, my mentor. He's been a CISO for multiple companies. I was doing desktop support for Ernst & Young in those days. This is back now. I'm going from my 14 and to my teens to my early mid 20s, and I would work on his laptop. And one day after working with him for 6 months, not that I worked 6 months for his laptop, but he always had something for me to work on his laptop, right? He asked me to come and join his team and to go and try, be a pen tester or a red team. In those days, we used to call them tiger teams. So you did attacks and penetrations, what we used to call them. And I said, well, I've never done it professionally or anything like that, or even unofficially. I'm not, or unofficial. And he's like, don't worry, we're going to teach you. And that was my official entry into security. It was because of Patrick.
I got into it for a very short period of time. When I was around 13, my dad had taken me to Barnes & Noble, and there was a book called Hack This Site. And I thought it was so cool. I loved when they had, the cool looking prompt screens on the movies. And I saw that was on one of the covers. And I thought, well, that'd be so cool. It's a how-to book on how to do this stuff. and it existed. It was real, and they sold it at Best Buy. I don't know if they would today, but they did. And so I bought it, went home, read through it. They had different servers you could log in to practice different things. It was progressive education, so they'd start you with something basic and teach you. I got into that, started messing around with my brother who was off at college, and then the computer downstairs. It was really easy because I'd be at the computer upstairs and be like, why isn't this working? I'd just go downstairs and go back and forth till I finally figured out how to do it. Then I was like, all right, now let's do it with some random people on AOL Instant Messenger. And it was more about just like, oh, look, I can do it, and I can change the color of their background or whatever it is, right? And so that was fun. And then I really quickly realized that I had a lot of fun in the programming aspect of it, and I had gotten into that quite a bit. And I realized that I could just make money legitimately on Scriptlance, which is like an Upwork now, right? They don't care that I'm 13 or 14. They just pay and have a project, and you get a profile. So I got into that, and then I kind of forgot about security for the better part of a decade or so. And then when the applications I was working on started to get more popular and gain more traction, all of a sudden security became important, right? They weren't small little projects. They were actually getting traffic. And so I had to go back to security and just refamiliarize myself with some basics. And through that act, to what you said earlier, which is what made me think of this, when you spend a decade or two writing software, building SaaS applications, you learn about, and if you're good at it and you have discipline and you really care, you learn about all the different places people would cut corners. And all those little places people are going to cut corners is just the first places you would check. And I realized, wow, I haven't intentionally been on security, but my act of becoming a programmer in this specific type of programming has actually lent me some pretty decent knowledge on where to poke around if I wanted to get in somewhere I shouldn't be. And so that was kind of cool to take a break from the industry and then realize you kind of didn't really take a break. You still have a lot of background knowledge. That felt good.
Yeah. And I know that some folks say that you shouldn't pursue your passion, but this is my passion. I love this. And I think most security people are passionate about what they're doing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I knew I wanted to do computers since the moment my dad showed me and I did Hello World. I felt like an unstoppable character in a superhero. I was like, that felt good. And then I spent the next 48 hours awake writing these super basic, macros to run some DOS commands. So I made a little menu and then I could press, did shortcuts for basic commands and learned how to pass variables. And I was like, this is so cool.
Oh, it's just such a joy, isn't it? Like you start, it seems to be, it's a way of being very creative and having an impact on things that you can have an impact. You can automate things, you can speed things up, and there's that creativity, but that intrinsic value as well, right? You get something out of it. And that's what I gravitate to this stuff.
And when you're looking for opportunities as you went around your career, you looked for that in those opportunities?
As I got a little bit more, I was a manager when I was 28 years old, and I built my first security organization at one of these startups. And I'm 28, man, God bless all those 28-year-olds or 20-somethings that are just so much more mature than me, because I was not emotionally mature. Jesus, I can't believe I got away with all that crap. I also realized that as a manager, and I needed to learn more on how to be a better manager, and how to understand my employees. And it was just about tech stuff, which it is. A lot of it is, but it's also about people and what drives people, what motivates people. And I wasn't ready for that. And so in my 30s, most of my early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, I decided to not be a manager for about 7, 8 years and just be kind of an individual contributor, an architect, security architect, certainly making my ideas, influence the company. Like I love ideas. I love to be able to say, I don't need the title. Just let me have my ideas make a difference. And that was really helpful for me. I needed to learn to be an individual contributor again and look at good managers and bad managers that I had. We all had that, and then learn something from all of them. And then there was a point when I said, well, I think it's time to go back. It's time to be a manager. It's time to manage people.
What was that moment when you said, okay, I think I've had this experience and I'm ready to become a manager now?
It really was God, it's going to sound really arrogant. It's so terrible. But no, I mean, it's just, it would be where I would be in an organization. I mean, let's say it was a larger organization. I'm not going to say names, but where you would have a person promoted as your manager, and they weren't even in the security industry space. They were project managers, and they made them the security manager just because they were good project managers. And that to me was just so, down to the core of my soul, I could not see that. I could not make that connection. I felt like if you're not a programmer or a system administrator or an engineer, or you're not coming from the tech world and you're doing this, or especially and then security, how can you be a security manager? And I felt like that really was, I have a lot of respect for project managers, don't get me wrong, and I'm sure some of them are really good at what they do, and even maybe they can lead security organizations, not the ones I work for. I'm going to leave it like that, but I was like, well, if somebody's going to be making these decisions for the whole company or for this group, well, geez, I might just give it a shot. I think I think I have a little bit more experience and maybe I've learned a little, but humble yourself. You're not perfect, but give it a shot. And that's what happened.
I agree. I would definitely, in my experience, agree with you and say that 80% of the time I see project managers managing something that they're unaware of as far as a practitioner. It's not great. But there is one or two of those people out there who do understand humans enough, but it's definitely the exception, not the rule. So,
yeah. So, ultimately that changed my, I think, I think of it as a journey. I think we all go through our own journey in life. Mm-hmm. As I've been in this industry and doing security for 25 plus years now, there's like a journey. It's like I think most of us go through this, like if you read the Odyssey and Odysseus and what he went through, and you come back home and you're different. You're the same, but different because of the experiences you've had. And then you're saying, bam, back. Sorry, Joel, go ahead.
No, you're inspiring me. I was having a conversation like that with the sales team maybe last week. We were in a sales call and we started, we do our show, people sponsor our show, but then we started making shows for other companies. And we were in this one sales call and we were like, we've recorded over 1,000 episodes, right? And I was thinking to myself, it's been about 7 years across all of our shows. We've done 1,000, north of 1,000 episodes. I've personally hosted, thank you, 700 episodes. I am not a confident person in general. Okay. I am very slow to confidence. And for example, like for me to get confident to say I was a good programmer took me over a decade. Like to say, okay, I know enough to where I go to the conferences and I hear, the experts and the people that write the core languages. I hear them have arguments and I know what the experts disagree on and what the different schools of thought are. And when I got through that entire experience, it's like, okay, now I have some confidence to say I'm a pretty decent software engineer. And then I didn't have that in podcasting until I had this realization, I was saying like, wow, we have done hundreds of these. And it took me, people will often ask me, they'll say, oh, well, how long, I don't like looking at my face or I don't like the sound of my own voice and all of that. And I'll say, well, I didn't either, but it took me 200 episodes to get over it. Right. So it just kind of happened. So when I get to talk with people like you who have had this, career and this growth and have gotten to this amazing position at this huge company, I'm always trying to figure out, like, all that experience that built up to their confidence. What are those lessons along the way? So with that being said, I'm curious, what is one of the mistakes that you made many times over?
When it comes to your team. So I'm been managing teams now for a while, right? I've built a number of teams. So sometimes there's a book called The Principles Book by Ray Dalio. I think Ray Dalio.
Yep.
Yeah. And however you feel about Ray Dalio, I get it. Okay, but there are some.
He's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
The book is amazing.
It is up. So I'm of the opinion that it is an amazing book. And so one of the things we don't do ourselves a service when it comes to managing, building teams is one sometimes feels or projects into your team, and you think like they're going to be like you. Hey, this worked for me. This is going to work for them. And then what ends up happening is you put these employees in the wrong position, and you keep forcing it on them. And through time, what I've learned is sometimes folks they have different motivations for different more humans. I know that we do have there are patterns in our personalities, but there's some uniqueness to all of us, and what motivates us as well is important. So what is this whole point? Basically, what I've learned and what I've done mistakes over and over is sometimes you hold on to an employee longer than they should have been in the team, and you're not doing them any favors. You're certainly not doing any favors to the team overall, but you're also not doing a favor to them, to the employee. And sometimes it's better to have these tough conversations at some point. And I think you might be better in a different team in the company, or maybe the company's not right for the individual as well. Freedom. This is not give them freedom. Let them be. Give them an opportunity to go shine where they can shine. Because I know everybody has a worth. Some worth. All of us do. And deep down inside, I think we want to do well. And so give those employees opportunities to do well. Right? Don't hold, right? Joe, sorry.
I struggled with that too for a while. It was being able to find the perspective that you have to do what's best for them, right? And you have to find the perspective that allows you to say the thing that's best for them is them moving on to their next thing. And I'll tell you, I am the person, Mario, where if we're out at dinner, I'll pull you aside and be like, hey, you got some food in your teeth. That's hard. That's a difficult thing. Most people don't want to do it. And I think for me, when I see it, I didn't want to do it at first, but I've heard enough people talk in the, Tony Robbins type space of personal development to know that, sometimes these difficult things are little signals that if you, master them, you can become better. And so I would want somebody to tell me if I had food in my teeth, right? Even though it might be difficult for them. And so when I was first starting my company and, it's all my money, right? You get to that point where you're like, wow, when it's all your money on the line, you get real bold, real fast to do the things that need to be done. And then through that, I would say an advanced degree in economics would be just putting your life savings on the line on a business.
Yeah. Hard knocks. Yeah.
Yes. It's an expensive university, but it's quick, but you'll figure it out because, you burn the ships. So, I know I jumped around a little bit there, but I like what you mentioned about understanding where people are motivated. And also it took me a long time to figure out, well, how to frame it to where it's actually the best thing for them to move on, and B, to understand, to your point of motivations, I used to think that they were static. And then I found out really quickly they're dynamic, right? And people, as they go through their life, their motivation's changing. Obviously, my motivation's different when I'm welcoming a new child into the world, right, than it is when that new child's been around for 6 months and now I'm like, let's go make some more money, and let's advance the career or whatever it is. So these dynamic motivations, I haven't found any secret to it, Mario, and you can please share if you see something I don't, but you just have to know your people. You just have to spend time with them.
You need to spend time with them, and you have to be brutally transparent with them. And it starts with you. Like, with one, when I make a mistake, I hope, it's not super perfect, but I hope to be able to tell all of my employees in front of them that I made a mistake. I was wrong. And it's okay to make mistakes. That's why we're human. What I've asked people to do is learn from your mistakes. Tell me how you're going to make it different the next time. That's the one requirement I have. There's two requirements. One is you learn from your mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. It's okay. Tell me what you've learned, how we're going to adjust. The other one is you never, ever put down anybody. Ever. In front of them or in closed doors. You may have questions about their ideas and poke holes at their ideas. Absolutely. In front of everybody. That's okay. But you don't say things like, that's a stupid idea, ever. Or you're a dumb person for thinking that. That if you do those couple of things and you genuinely want to listen, like you were saying, Joel, listen to your employees. Just listen. Not what you think you want to hear, but what they're really trying to tell you. One will find that you have a much more open and honest conversation with employees, and that you can have those really tough conversations in a safe place where you both can make a decision how you want to proceed. But you have to earn that trust. It's trust, earning trust.
Where do you get your discipline from?
Part of that is I ride bikes. I ride bikes a lot. Like I used to race bikes and I used to do triathlons, race bikes amateur. And when you're really training and you're racing and you really want to get good at something, you dedicate yourself and you are constantly failing because you're pushing yourself to the failure. And you just have to realize, you'll notice within months, you're improving, you're getting better. It's a struggle for all of us to have discipline. And I would argue that if you spend too much time trying to manipulate or control things outside of you, it's just going to be a losing battle. I think our biggest challenge in life as people is going to be this of, how do I control my emotions? And not control them. How do you accept those emotions, but don't let them...
Ooh, that's good. We can't just gloss over that. Say that again. Not do I control them, but what?
How do I accept those emotions, but allow them to express themselves in ways that are not going to be detrimental in the long run? If you're upset about something, I find myself, if you try to hide it and not share how you feel, it's going to manifest itself in a really bad way sooner or later. You're going to blow up. Okay? It's different to say, you know what you just said right now, here's the way I'm hearing it. I got to tell you, it's kind of pissing me off. So you don't raise your voice, you don't yell at the person, but you tell them how you feel. And you say, it's not you didn't say that, this is the way I'm hearing it. And you try to be really open about it and make yourself vulnerable. Make yourself vulnerable to your employees, quite honestly. Expose yourself. Because that, in essence, will free you. It'll allow you to not let those emotions fester inside. It's not always perfect, Joel, but you got to constantly be doing it.
100%. I like that you discussed your training. For me, I don't have a lot of like hard set times, like I have to work out 30 minutes a day or whatever it may be. My rule is I have to go in and I do workout until I don't want to, and then that's when the workout starts. So I go in, I get to that point, like I don't care about 3 sets of 10, I don't care about that. I do the rep until I get to the point where my brain goes, oh, put it down, we did it, you know, whatever. I'm like, nope. And then I just see how far I can push myself from that point. And the purpose of that is not to become this, you know, huge beast physically. The purpose of that is to train my mind to, when I get to the point where I want to quit, I do it anyways. And so if I can wake up every day, you know, and get in my morning routine, and before I even begin working on whatever writing or shows or whatever I'm going to be doing, step 1 is to make myself do something I don't want to do. And if I can do that, then everything else is just super easy, right? It's just this work stuff. Because it's this weird thing that works for me. I don't know if it works for other people, but when I can make myself physically do something I don't want to do, all the knowledge worker stuff is just a breeze.
I think we try to separate, you know, the physical aspect of our brain or our mind from the physical aspect of it. And honestly, there's no separation. And I would argue if you're not trying to stay healthy or do something to manage that stress, it's going to manifest itself in your emotions and how you think and how you conduct yourself with your peers, your employees, your clients, your customers. And that is especially important in security. I think it's important for everything, but in security, you know, there were many times I've had to talk to customers who have a point of view about what they want to see, particular, you know, Snowflake. You know, here's what we need you to have these controls, implement it this way, et cetera, et cetera. And it's important to hear them out and understand where those control, that regulation or why they're asking you to do certain things. And there will be times, and often, and most of the Snowflake customers that I dealt with will tell you that I usually said no to what they were asking, but I didn't say no in a way to say, no, we're not going to do that. But rather, I hear what you're saying. We can't do that in the deployments that we have. But what if we do it this way? How would that help? Will that address your... So look for ways to get to a yes for both of you. It may not be what the client wanted initially from a technical perspective, but ultimately maybe find a resolution. And again, if you're going to find a resolution, the one thing for security folks as well, and I know a lot of folks who are starting their career or even they've been in the career for a while, listen. Really listen first before you tell people how to do security. Hear how they work. What is their responsibility? What are the things that they need to focus on for their own jobs, their challenges, and hear how your security controls or security is making it harder on them. Empathize with them. And then start sharing how we can make it better or how we can improve security with them.